Welcome back, guys and gals, boys and girls. This is episode 3 of 4, where I take you along with me to build a replica of Peter's shield from the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Prince Caspian. So, today is part 3. We are going to be sanding down our shield and priming and painting the shield, which is going to be a process and a half. And in addition to that, we're going to be treating this side with some nice wood treatment. But before we get started on that, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you are not, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell for notifications when new videos are uploaded. Also, comment below on what you want to see next on Narnia lore builds. Also, go ahead and check us out on Instagram. Give us a follow. I follow back, don't worry. Alrighty, let's get into it. So first of all, what we're going to do is we are going to give this whole shield a nice sanding. We're going to start with some 60 grit sandpaper just to kind of give it a nice buffing, make sure all the major splinters are off and such. And then we're just going to jump straight to some 220 grit. There's really no need to kind of take a gradual working up from 60 grit to 80 grit to 100 grit, all that. Like, just sand it down, get the rough part done, and then once you got that done, just go to 220. I really don't see a point in doing all that extra steps in between. So, let's go. Also, a quick word of warning. Watch out for splinters on these things, especially the tiny ones. They'll really get you. I have a couple in my thumb right now, but oh well. You can wear some gloves while you're doing this. That's totally fine. I'm not going to because I just don't want to. But watch out for those. So the front really didn't take all that long, plus we really don't need to get it that smooth because we're going to be putting all sorts of paints and enamels on top of it, so I'm really not worried about it. It's the back side that you really need to worry about, and this, holy cow, this is so rough compared to the front now. So hey, I guess I did my job right there. So next, and plus we got to get all the bits of marker off and everything and anything else, so yeah. But first, I'm gonna move out of the sun because this is really hot. There we go, I think this will be a little better. Alright, well, I took some of my own advice, and I'm wearing gloves for this, because I just spent about 20 minutes trying to pick a splinter out of my finger, and had to perform a mini surgery on myself, so wear gloves. Alright, so I think we got this side pretty well done. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we got it fairly smooth and such. And treating it is gonna make it a lot smoother than it is. So I think it is on to, I want to mask off this, at least the edges here, with just some masking tape. And then we'll get to priming this side. Let's go. Alright, we're going to cover this back side of the shield here, and I'm just going to use some newspapers and then some masking tape. So the masking tape, all we're going to do with this, really, I'm just going to put it on the edge like this, so that way it protects the edge and prevents any paint coming in from getting onto the wood itself. Now I'm not treating this side yet because this will be sitting outside, and in the heat, tape can get real gummy and nasty, and I don't want that to get onto the wood treatment. And so if it just gets gummy and nasty on the wood itself, then I sand it a little bit more and then treat it. So instead of treating it twice, I just do it once. So, alright, I'm going to finish this masking and then we'll head outside for painting. Alright, so right here with our primer, and we are going to put 2 coats of primer on this. I like to do things in 2 coats. That way you're not putting the primer on too thick or anything. In fact, I like to do 2 coats of every coat we're going to do. But we're going to do 3 layers of paint, so 3 different types of paint. We're going to use primer first, then we're going to have a base coat of black enamel to get this all nice and glossy. Then we'll put the silver on, because the silver without the enamel is going to actually look pretty dull in comparison. You'll see when we get there. And then unfortunately we're going to have to hand paint on the red lion, and then hand paint in some gold inlays and some other parts, but that's not going to be too difficult. But anyway, let's get to priming this sucker. Also, don't breathe in the fumes of this stuff, it's nasty. So hold your breath or wear a respirator. Alright, so that's our first coat. You guys are probably thinking, oh, that's actually a pretty thick coat, but actually it's pretty thin. I don't know if you can see it from your angle, but you can still see a lot of wood peeking out through there. So that's going to be our first layer. We're going to let that dry for about an hour, and then we'll come back and do our second layer. Well, that was a little bit longer than an hour, I'm not going to lie, but, you know, got the job done. This first coat is pretty dry. And I need to make sure there's not any debris on it or anything like that. And let's get our second coat going. I'm excited. Let me know about you. Alright, that's the second coat of primer now. I may lay down a third coat later when this dries, I'm not sure. But we'll let this dry, and then the next step is to coat it in enamel. Alright, now that the primer is nice and dry, we're going to move on to the next step in our process, and that is putting on some enamel. This is going to give this a nice, smooth, glossy texture in order to put the silver on. And it's going to make this both the silver and the red that we put on for the lion. And by the way, this is a nice little handle I bought just at the hardware store. Really convenient, it kind of saves your fingers. You just clip it on and then you squeeze the trigger here to activate the paint. So it's a little bit better, like I said, it saves your fingers. Let's get to this though. Alright, that was our first layer. My can is starting to puke itself, I think. It's not that I'm out, it's just some of the aerosol gets kind of messed up after you have it for a while. Anyway, this first layer is looking really good. We're going to let this dry for about another hour or so. It is like 1,000,000 degrees out here, so it's probably not going to take an hour to dry, but I just want to make sure to be safe. Especially with it being a dark color, the heat's going to soak in, and holy cow, does it dry fast. So, I'll see you in an hour. Alright, story time. So this is actually the next day from the last shot you saw. So what had happened is that after I gave it a second coat and everything, or coated this initially, with the enamel, I was feeling this and I was looking at it and the texture was really rough. I didn't like it. It wasn't doing what I wanted it to. So I did something that I really wanted to avoid, but I did it, and I gave it another light sanding and then coated it back with the enamel, and now it's a lot smoother. So it's got 2 coats of enamel on it, and we are now ready for our first coat of silver. So this is just some Rust-Oleum metallic finish silver paint. Nothing too fancy. You can use whatever brand of paint you want. I mean, shoot, that goes for all the paints. But this is just what I happen to have at the moment, so let's get to it. I'm pretty excited. First coat of silver. We're gonna let this dry for now, because you don't want to put it on too heavy. I got ahead of myself and put it on too heavy in some areas, but I stopped myself. We're gonna let this dry, and then we'll come back and put a second coat on. This is shaping up really nicely. I'm really excited. I know about you guys, but I am super excited. This is looking great, and I cannot wait to see the finished product. All right, second coat. Here we go. I'm not gonna lie, it's actually kind of hard to see because this is so dadgum bright. You can see me squinting real hard. Holy cow. I may have to do a third coat on this simply because I can't see what I'm doing right now. Holy cow, that is really bright actually. Like, it's actually hurting my eyes. So I'm gonna let this dry, and I'm gonna come back to this later in the day because I can't see a dadgum thing. But hey, we got another coat on there, so if it's good, it'll be good. If it's not, put a third coat on it. No big deal. See you then. All right, so now we've got our silver dried. I did end up putting a third coat on here. But the silver's all done with that, and all we have to do now is to put the red on for the lion, and then there's some like gold outlines on a couple of things, and that'll be it for the painting. So in order to do the red, I'm going to use spray paint, but I'm not going to spray it on, because if I mask the lion off, then there's a high chance that I'm going to peel off all the silver, and I really don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use red spray paint, but I'm going to spray it into a cup outside, mind you, because you don't want this stuff smelling. It's going to stink enough and give off enough toxic fumes in the cup already. So spray it into the cup outside, and then I'm just going to brush it on. Spray paint, even when brushed on, actually goes on pretty smoothly, so don't worry about that. But I would recommend using a brush that you do not care about, because this stuff can really gum up brushes. So you have been warned. All right, looks like I just bled myself into the cup here. All right. Whew. You know what? Safety first. I'm gonna wear a respirator. You never can be too careful. Alright, now, before you click off this video and say, oh, you're horrible, you're a scam, your paint job looks horrible. Bro, I know. Seriously, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can see it. There's a lot of bleed through in the paint right now, so you can see a lot of the silver sticking up. It's just the nature of spray paint, especially when it's not being sprayed on from the can. So I'm gonna let this dry. This is gonna have to take place over several coats. So I'm gonna let this dry. Honest to goodness, probably I should let it dry for like a full day or two. But we'll let it dry for a couple hours, and then we'll come back and just keep recoating it until we get a nice bright red color on there. But for now, you guys can see it. This is starting to shape up and look like the shield from the movie. So I'm really excited about this. So I guess the only thing to do now is just wait and put a second coat on. Alright, so it is the next morning now, and what we're going to do the gold inlay on this edge here, and then on this area right in here. So, because we got the red done, and this is actually looking really nice. Got 2 layers of red on there. I think it looks pretty much perfect. So now we're just going to use this little syringe, and we're going to get some paint out of our cup here. We're just going to very carefully just kind of inlay it into these grooves. So hopefully this works. Super excited for this. We're gonna peel off the protecting papers here, and then gonna give it a final light sanding just to make sure everything's good, and then we're gonna put some stain on it. All right, so I got this nice and smooth now. There's a little bit of dust on it. But this is nice and sanded. This is absolutely gorgeous. So now I'm gonna put on our first coat of wood treatment here for the back. Probably going to take several coats because I tested this on some other wood and it's pretty light, so it's not nearly as dark as I want it to be, and I don't think I'll be able to get it as dark as I want it to. But, you know, we'll make do with what we got. So we'll use this one. This is the darkest one that I have. So we'll treat it and let it dry, and then probably tomorrow I will put a second coat on. I'll probably put like 3, maybe 4 coats on because it needs to dry for about, or cure for about 8 hours. So, and with wood stain, you can't just go over it again like paint. So you really got to let it soak into the wood. So this, you do actually have to wait for the time for this to cure. So, but anyway, that aside, let's get to our first coat. All right, guys. So another story time. So this is actually probably the second time I've done this now, and it's really annoying. So for some reason, every time I put a wood coat on, no matter how smooth I sand this, using this rag, this old sock, does not work because all the fibers keep getting caught in the wood, no matter how smooth it is, and it leaves all these little fuzzies all over. So what I'm going to have to dadgum do is just give it a light sanding again, and I'm actually going to brush it on this. I'm getting smart now. I'm going to brush it on, and then we'll see how that works. We'll pry this open and use the brush this time to apply our staining. This is technically our second coat because I didn't sand much of the actual coat off. So this is still, I think, our second coat. Oh yeah, getting a darker color. That's good. Well, this stuff's still wet, so maybe it's probably not going to be as dark, but it'll be darker. Well guys, I think we got it. So this part is now nice and treated, and I think it looks really, really good. So unfortunately I didn't get it quite as dark as I wanted it to, but that was due to the lack of the treatment that I had. But overall, this is all done, and all we need to do is put the light finish on it. So that'll be in the next episode, the last episode for this shield build. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, hit that like button. Also, if you are not, please consider subscribing for more exciting videos from Narnia Lore. Also, let me know in the comments what you want to see next on Narnia Lore builds. And go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram over at official Narnia Lore. And until next time, I will see you on the next episode of